Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rex, I think it'll be good to tell them what's going on. One will start because I see people are coming in and going out of the room.
So good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to today's session of the preparatory session for all Nigerian law school students, hosted by the Nigerian Bar Association Institute of Continuing Learning Education. So would be starting about now, but I think it's just right to give, say, 1 or 2 minutes for persons who would come in late. So it will start at exactly 7:05. So 2 minutes. So we just have some numbers in. Okay, so it's 7:05, and I think this is the perfect time to start this. As I said earlier, welcome, very warm welcome to everybody to today's session. I would start by giving a brief explanation of what this event is all about. So this event, basically, it's a preparatory session for all Nigerian law school students, aspirants to the bar, as we call them. It's an event which is organized by the MBA, Institute of Continuing Learning Education, dedicated to enhancing, which is the body of the Nigerian Bar Association dedicated to enhancing the legal knowledge and skills of both aspiring and practicing lawyers. The event is particularly powered by Tobena Irojikwe, a partner at Law Crest LLP and chairman of the governing board of the MBA, Institute of Continuing Learning Education. So this event would span for a period of 4 days. It started yesterday, and we had the likes of Tawakot Ibidoni and Paul Samuel, who took us on a very interesting session and deposited beautifully yesterday. So what do we tend to gain from this experience or this virtual tour? I call it a virtual tour and not a symposium because it's actually a virtual tour across all 7 campuses of the Nigerian Law School. Yesterday we started, and it's ending next week, Sunday, which is the 23rd. So basically, what do we tend to gain from this event? One, we tend to gain expert advice. So we have the likes of Mr. Tobena Erojikwe and other notable speakers. As I said yesterday, we had Paul Samuel, we had Tawakot, and we have an array of beautiful speakers today that you would really, really learn from, who have a vast experience in the legal field and who just finished from the law school with hands-on or practical experiences on how to navigate the bar finals. You also get tips and strategies on how to actually pass the bar finals or ace the bar finals. Not just pass it with an average grade, but pass it to the best of grades you can imagine or you want to get out of it. We also have career insights. As you know, the event is actually a double-edged sword. One face of the sword being navigating the bar finals, and the second edge being ways to jumpstart your legal career your legal career. So you have career insights from practicing lawyers who are practicing abroad, who have practiced abroad and who are practicing in Nigeria, who have gained or garnered experience over the years and want to give that all to you. So, and also we have networking opportunities. With this symposia or virtual tour, you have networking opportunities to network with both the speakers and your fellow students across all campuses. So if you're an aspirant to the bar, I'm sure we have people here who are not even in the law school, but maybe in final year or waiting for resumption at the law school. You can as well network with your fellow students horizontally, or you network vertically with the speakers. Then also we have the question and answer session, which is an opportunity for you to seek clarifications from speakers on things you weren't exactly clear about. And I promise you the speakers are very well inclined and happy to answer all your questions and even more. So in conclusion, as I said earlier, this is more like a preparatory session for the aspirants to the bar, both to help them navigate and ace the bar finals, and to as well help them jumpstart their legal career. So on that note, I'll be inviting the convener of this event, who is the chairman governing board of the Institute of Continuing Legal Education of the Nigerian Bar Association, in person of Mr. Tobena Erojikwe.
Thank you very much, Rex. Thank you for that very nice introduction. Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. Yesterday's session was particularly brilliant, and I personally enjoyed it myself. And I expect that everybody who's joining in today will gain a lot from today's session. This is one of the most remarkable initiatives of the Nigerian Bar Association, and I'm quite delighted by the fact that it's actually inspired and led by young practitioners who have recently left the Nigerian Law School, who think that there is some gap that could be filled by them participating in this kind of event. and they have literally put this together to help those who are coming into the profession navigate the waters of the bar finals, and then also on how to get into the workplace. And it's based on the fact that they've experienced certain challenges that they felt perhaps they wouldn't have experienced if they had this kind of tutelage at the time that they were in law school and before getting into the workspace. And so I'm delighted by this give back by the individuals, young practitioners that I've mentioned. They're giving back today at absolutely no cost to their would-be colleagues or indeed to the MBA, but just to help facilitate the growth of their would-be colleagues. I thank you all very much. And to the participants, I must say that it's very important that you all take advantage of today's session. One of the things I've learned in practice and in life is that there is a technique for everything. And sometimes the technique is embedded in places that are considered remote. But every lawyer must learn to listen and listen very well and try to apply the knowledge they gain from different places. Oftentimes, we struggle with issues around soft skills, around how to navigate everyday issues. I'm sure the university and the law school has prepared you with all the technical knowledge that you need, but you will find every day that the softer skills of life and practice are the ones that enhance your capabilities the most when you get into the field. So I welcome the
Oh, sir, we lost you for a bit.
Yeah, I was only concluding anyway. So thank you very much, everybody. I will now be handing back to Rex so that Rex continues. Rex, I'll be leaving you to moderate the rest of the session. If you see me online at the end of it, then that means I want to say something. If you don't, then that means everybody has said everything that needs to be said. Thank you very much, and God bless you all. I wish you, the participants, good luck in your exams. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, sir. So there's no better opening remark than what you just said. I took particularly two things, or one most especially. You said there's a technique for everything, and obviously there's a technique for everything. And persons who are looking from the outside would think, you know, a particular activity might be very easy until you get your hands on it. And if you're lucky enough to have coaches or persons who have applied that route, hold you, you know, have you hands in hand to lead you through the path, then you don't know what God has done for you. I mean, if we had this kind of practical, you know, symposia or campus tour during my session, I'm sure many of us wouldn't have a problem after law school on ways to, you know, jumpstart our legal career or before the bar finals and navigating the you know, bar finals and acing it. So our first speaker for tonight is a very quintessential, gentle woman. Her name is Oluwamayowa Arafat Aroyewu. I've never actually met her in person, but I've read and heard about her. So, and her, you know, her resume is pretty intriguing. For me, as her colleague, talk more of persons who will be hearing her from the 7 campuses. So I encourage all of us to listen to what she has to say. So I'll just read out her, you know, resume, why she jumped in. So Ms. Oluwamayowa is a Nigerian legal practitioner who finished in the top 3 of her class at the University of Lagos. She also finished with the first class from the Nigerian Law School, where she emerged as the 3rd overall best graduating student of the 2021-2022 set, and bagging other accolades, such as being the 3rd best student in corporate law practice, best graduating student in Lagos campus, and 2nd best graduating female student. She currently works at Aluko and Oyebode, a top-tier Nigerian law firm, where she advises on banking and corporate law transactions. Ms. Maiwa is committed to giving back to her society in ways which include the mentoring of aspiring lawyers and the next generation of legal professionals. So on that note, I would be inviting Ms. Maiwa to take the floor. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you very much, Rex, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. This is Maiwa here speaking. I'm so glad to be here to be speaking to everyone. So it's really nice to be here to meet everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We lost you for a bit.
Oh, okay. Yes. So, just to like give a general overview, I know that it's already a month to bar finals and everybody's fidgeting and scared. Okay, also apologies everyone that I won't be able to turn on my video camera for some reasons. I'm unable to turn it on, but I'm sure you should be able to listen and understand what I'm saying. So you guys have a month to your exams, and I know that everybody's fidgeting because we might feel that oh, there's little or no time and you can't do anything now, it's over. But I can assure you that a lot can change within a month, even if I know that the extension period has passed, and even if you feel like you did not really do so much during your extension period, you can still utilize this 1 month and it can really change the trajectory of things from maybe you being a 2-2 student to a 2-1 or from a 2-1 to first class and so on. So the first thing I'll actually say is you should be intentional about what you want. So don't just say, let me just pass or whatever, like state what you want. Or if you want to actually have it pass, then that is fine. You can just work, or I would advise that you work towards something higher so that in case things don't work out right. But like just be intentional. If you want to first class, don't feel like, oh, okay, from the university, I finished with a 2-2 and I don't think I'm capable. There are so many bright minds there. That's like the first thing that like just discourages you. Your mindset really is really important. So don't have that mindset that oh, we have so many BGS from other schools here and they are nothing compared to them. So just have the mindset that oh, I want to be this, I want to be the BGS. You are never too over ambitious and you can always do. So once that mindset is there, the other things will just fall in, right? I'll also say that having a support system, especially at this last stage, this few weeks now, is very important because things could get really overwhelming and you might just need a support system to guide you. And when things like are going and you might need someone to just be there to just assure you that oh, things are going to be fine. Because without that support system, you might will I say crumble. I remember when I was still in school, there are sometimes my friends would they'll call me like they're breaking down or the syllabus is a lot, I'm not understanding, and then I'll be consoling them, and then maybe a day or that same day, I'm already breaking down also that this is a lot. So they were always there to just like support, we always just encourage each other. Because I know it could be overwhelmed, especially with bulky courses like corporate law and civil litigation. Those ones really get overwhelming and I just need a support system. I know that these things are not really, I'm not really touching on the courses itself. I'm just talking on these general things. So these general things will actually help you understand when you start reading or it's just help you. So but you need the support system, you need to have that mindset and be intentional. So at this point, I won't advise you to miss any classes at all. I know that some people will just be like, oh, rather than wasting my time, especially if you're in like maybe a very high demanding campus that probably stays later, will be like, why would I waste my time in class when I could use this time to read? Or why would I attend sessions and all that? They'll probably waste 2 hours of my time when I could be reading. I advise you not to have that mindset, because you really learn a lot in class, because the lecturers are the ones that would set the questions, and they are the ones. So whatever they say in class, they might really hint on like what might come out, because they don't really know what to come out, but at least they've set a couple of questions from which questions might be pulled from. So they really, so you really need to stay in class and listen to what the lecturers are saying in class. I'll also advise that at this time you need to, this is what I'm saying, they might sound funny, but it's really, really important. Eating and sleeping well is very, very important, because if you don't eat well, when you get to class, you'll be very, very, very hungry, and you might not be able to concentrate. What you just be looking for, what is, or when is it going to be break time? Whatever the lecturer says before break time, you are not understanding. And if you don't really understand what is being said in class, when you are reading, it's going to be more difficult, because you're putting more burden on yourself trying to understand. So if you had probably listened well in class, you might have used probably 2, 3 hours to understand, but not listening in class, you might not end up spending 6 hours trying to understand that particular thing. So eating well and then sleeping well. So I know a lot of people to probably not sleep well, because they feel like, why do I need to be sleeping now? Exam is around the corner. I remember my time, I was always sleeping like 8, 7 hours daily. Like, I did not used to miss my sleep, because I knew that sleeping was very, very important. There are some times that you might be reading, and then once you are reading, you're just not understanding, because your brain needs to rest. So when you get to that stage, just go and sleep or rest, because it's like you're pouring water into a filled cup or a filled jug. So it should just be overflowing. You're not going to retain anything unless you actually rest. So rather than just wasting those hours, just reading over it when you're not retaining anything, just go and rest. And when you wake up, you will feel refreshed, and you'll be able to take in new knowledge. Another thing I would also advise is uh past questions, and trying to engage in active recall. So the syllabus is, I think there are over 100 topics around the 5 courses. So like that's a lot of things to know, a lot of things to remember, and it's going to be really, really difficult. But something can guide you. The past questions can guide you. They shouldn't be taken slavishly. I mean, I know some people might just be reading based on the questions that come out of past questions. They should only serve as a guide, but like they are really important, because like they make you see how the lecturers are thinking. You get to have an idea of possible questions to expect. You get to have an idea of how to answer questions, and so on. So they are very, very important. But well, what I did, you can decide to structure yours in any way. But what I did was I dedicated my weekends to solving past questions. I know some people have asked me that, oh, please, how do I solve past questions? Do I start answering the past questions like I'm in an exam setting? Because, and I tell them, no, I would not advise that, because in an exam setting, you're given 3 hours to answer one particular course, and you're just answering 4 questions out of 6. And then if you now want to start answering your past questions like exam setting, obviously you want to attempt all the 6 questions. You won't try to attempt 4. And definitely you be using more than 3 hours, because not normal exam circumstances, you use 3 hours to answer 4 questions. But let me just assume you're using 3 hours to answer the 6 questions, and then you have that's just one course, and then you have 5 courses. That's already 5 times, that's already 15 hours for just 1 year. And then you have several years. So if you keep on doing that, you realize that, oh, that's a lot of time to be wasted. And I'm not yet factoring in the time to probably mark yourself and revise what you've like written. So you don't have to necessarily write it like, yeah, under exam conditions, but you need to write down something. When you see drafts, try to draft them down. You might not really write them in full. You might just like write them using abbreviations, but just to test yourself to know that, oh, I actually know this. Because if you just read it and be like, oh, I know this, or you just assume. If you realize that when you try to write it, you might not be able to, it might not flow, you might not know how to write it. So writing will actually help you know that, oh, I know this. And sometimes you might just look at first question and be like, oh, I don't know this, but just hold a pen and start attempting to write something. Trust me, you will and you realize that you actually know it. I know that some people have had snap tests, and while some said that, oh, the snap test was good, some said that it wasn't quite okay. But I'm sure that in that snap test, there were some questions that you probably saw and you were like, oh, I can't answer this. But eventually, we ended up writing something. So that's just how it is. You might feel you don't know, but just test yourself and write something down. And then you realize that you actually you know something, and that's just all that matters. So it's not really about oh, I'm reading. It's the exam, nobody's going to ask you, oh, how many hours did you spend reading? Oh, what did you read? Oh, what did you write down? This is what you're able to retain. So past questions will actually help you retain a lot, and then trying to, and it help you recall and retain. Also trying to actively recall things so you can quiz your friends, your roommates, and just generally quiz yourself randomly. Oh, what is this? Just try to randomly say it out loud or randomly write it down. This will actually help you actively recall. Because I know that that's like a major issue that people are having. It's not like they're not reading, but they feel like
Sorry, Mayo,
quickly.
sorry, we lost you. Hello, Mayo.
Hello, Rex. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Oh, so sorry. Where did you stop? Where did I go off, please?
You said quiz your friends.
Oh, okay, yeah. So just yes, you can quiz your friends, quiz yourself, quiz your roommates, and just try to actively recall this information you've read. I know a lot of people, what they say is that it's not like they are not reading, they are reading, but they are not remembering. And lots is about what you can remember. It's not even about what you can remember, it's what you can put down or your ability to interpret the questions now, because you might know something and then you see the question, you might not even be able to decode that, oh, this is what they are asking. When you now come out of the exam or then people now start talking about, you be like, oh, but I know this now, I know this rule, I know this, but you are not able to interpret the question to know that this is what they're asking. That's why I don't advise people to cram, and I always advise that you try to read to understand and you try to answer first questions, because that will also assist you to understand what the question is about, how they want you to answer, what they want you to say, and all that. Also, pray. Prayer is very, very important. I cannot overemphasize it. If you have a group of friends or whatever, you can try to also study with them. Or I know there are two sides to studying in groups, right? You should only study in a group if you should have read something, right? Don't just go there empty because you might feel intimidated by the people you meet there. And also, some group study will usually just waste your time because you just have people there trying to just act like they probably know it or are not try to explain to people. And then you have some group study that is just all about arguments and people are not really learning anything and people just go there and feel bad about themselves. But that's why I will not advise you to like organize a group study with so many people. You can just pick your friends or roommates or colleagues that you guys have the same goals or you guys think alike and you guys know that, oh yes, I'm on the same track, and just basically practice questions, quiz yourself randomly, practice questions, listen to how they will answer, ask them, how would you answer this question if it was in an exam setting? Listen to how they will answer. So you might be thinking that, oh, this is how I'll answer. If they ask me for, oh, can you list types of directors or something, this is how I'll answer. But then they say something and like, oh wow, that's actually smart. Then you realize that, wow, okay, so if I was a lecturer, I would definitely give this person like an A or an iron man because of the way they said it, rather than the way I just said it very plainly. So like that will help you. You get to see how people answer their questions and just get to learn from them. Honestly, studying with people is very, very important. And also, this is pre-exam, post-exam, so there are some consequences. Especially with MCQs, because I know MCQs come first, and then after the MCQs, you have the other courses. And for MCQs, you have all your 5 courses together. So, and then that's 20 marks per course. So at the end of your MCQ, you already have like 100 marks gone. And let's say, for example, you mess up with the MCQ and you feel like, oh, you failed a lot of questions, and then you start panicking, and then you now give up. Don't just give up, no matter what you see in your MCQ. Because I also had in my MCQ, there was for even for corporate law, there was some set of questions that I was very sure I didn't know. About 8 of them. I was like, I don't know these questions because some things happen. Sha. I just did not know this question. Then but I didn't panic. I looked back at them, and then I realized that okay, I know about 3 of them out of 8. So I was left with 5. So I was kind of sure that I knew 15 out of 20. So it was just 5 that I didn't know. But I didn't really panic. And then at the end of the day, I ended up doing well in corporate. So don't just panic that, oh, I didn't know this one or MCQ. Even if you didn't know everything, that's 20 marks. You have 80 marks to still, and there's no way if you don't know anything, it's 20 marks. Even if you guess, you might still be able to know like 5. So you have 5 already out of 20. And then in your theory, you have about 80 marks to fight for, and then anyhow, your A is 70. So like don't just give up hope after no matter what comes out in MCQ, even after the exam, still don't give up hope. You can still keep on praying. But there are times that our lecturers have told us that we've had the lecturers sometimes that have some sort of argument when they are marking, and then they say that should we mark this, should we not mark this? So I just believe that if you pray, anything can happen, even if you feel like what you did was not it. The lecturers sometimes say, oh, okay, but we taught them this in this campus, let's just mark it. So also, yes, another very important thing, I know different things start flying around. Oh, they said this in Abuja, oh, they said this in Port Harcourt, oh, they said this in Lagos, and then you now start confusing yourself. Just stick to whatever is being taught in the campus, because the lecturers know that, oh, this is what you were taught, and don't start confusing yourself with what they were taught in that campus, because at the end of the day, the lecturers know what they taught each campus, and it's based on that they'll set the marking scheme. So don't start panicking when you start hearing, oh, they taught them this in this campus. You can just try to read up on it on your own, but like don't confuse yourself with what is being taught in your own campus. And yeah, so that's basically it. So like just pray, Lord, I don't be scared. Now I know a lot of people are like some people might be judged. Some people have different reading of techniques. Some people judge by writing down, some people just read. And especially people that judge by writing, you might feel like, oh my God, am I going to be able to finish writing? And don't be scared to stop. If you feel like, oh, this technique is not working for you, it's taking so much of your time, I might not be able to catch up, leave that technique. Don't feel like if I don't write down, or like you might write down, but you don't have to make extensive notes, because it's not really about what you write, it's about what you're able to retain. If it's taking so much of your time, you can use another technique. Like don't just stick to one technique, like try different. I know now it's kind of late, but if you're on one technique and you feel like it's not working, it's not too late now. It's a month to start using another technique to just try to brush up, and it might help you. Also, to try to ease off stress, I already mentioned eating and sleeping. You can also not say, oh, it's exam, I'm going to lock myself, I won't go to church, I won't go to the mosque. Do what you normally do and you'll be fine. So I think that's just it for before exam and after exam. I mentioned that you pray and all that. So I don't know if anybody has any question at this junction, or if there's anything anybody would like me to talk more on or explain more on.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Maiwa, for the exposition, really. And I bear witness to the fact that everything you said here is true. I took down notes. You said being intentional about what you want. So at the bar finals, at the bar finals, I had a problem with fear of failure or desire for success. So how to balance that? Are you afraid that you would fail the bar finals? Is that what is pushing you to read your books, or are you really gunning for success? So finally, I then resolved that, okay, the best argument there should be your desire for success. Because if you're afraid of failure and that's what prompts or informs your desire to read, then you just want to get off the ground. So anything that is not failure, you're okay with it. But if you desire success and you earnestly desire success, meaning you're gunning for the stars, right? Yeah, you're gunning for the stars, and maybe even if you fall off track, you wouldn't fall very far from the start. I mean, so that's just perfect. I mean, that's the first thing you said. You talked about support system. You talked about attending classes. This 1 month bar finals, as you said, the examples you gave, you said, oh, it's just 1 month to bar finals. I don't want to listen to what they're saying again in class. And we should, channel our energy towards personal studies and personal readings. I think this times, should I say trying times, and lecturers use the opportunity to maybe chip in what may possibly come out of bar finals, or just give you more like areas of concentration, not exactly, but what may come out. Because I remember while at Lagos campus, and the lecturer kept on giving us, areas that she thought would come out. She was calling it Amaria, and that we should, take note of that. But eventually those areas did not come out, but most of them actually came out. So attending lectures at this time, 1 month to bar finals, it's very crucial, and you shouldn't miss it for nothing. You also mentioned, Maiwa, you also mentioned eating and sleeping. In fact, you said eating makes understanding easier. And if you eat well or sleep well, you tend to understand things even quicker than you would have if you were reading on an empty stomach or
Yeah. Just for
not.
me to add, I never missed breakfast when I was in school. I always had breakfast. And I think that one just helped me, because why people were like, oh my God, when is it going to be lunchtime? I can't wait to leave this class. I'm still there. Sometimes I don't even go for lunch because I'd already eaten earlier. It doesn't have to be anything big. You might just have biscuits or cereal if you take cereal, or bread, or just anything to just hold that. Anything that will just not distract you. Also, if you don't sleep enough, you probably start feeling dizzy in class and sleeping in class, and then miss out on a lot. So those things will really help.
Yeah, definitely. Then you also mentioned past questions, and you emphasized the need to simulate the bar exams, or as many times as possible rehearse bar questions. I think the secret of acing bar finals, really, amongst all the other tips which you talked about, is the rehearsal, past question itself. And you emphasize that it's not exactly good to cram, and pour in the example. But if you rehearse over and over again, you would see that it becomes ABC and you have it on your fingertips. And in fact, after bar finals, I kept on thinking, what is the main tip that I can tell my younger brother or the next generations coming after me that it is to ace the bar finals? And I just realized that everything boils down to rehearsals, right? So the more you rehearse these bar finals or bar finals questions, you tend to become very much comfortable with it. Whenever you see the questions, you just automatically know the answer. You know the cases, case law, or statutes that follows the particular answer. In fact, after bar final, I was thinking, oh, what can I do to help the next generation? And that's when the idea of my application came out. The application is basically has 1,001 questions for the next generation of bar final, not this particular set, but I think from the next set. It's actually a free platform where all the questions and answers, all the draft, all the statutes, all case laws, and all of that would be. So you've in fact, that's actually the nail you hit on the head, which is to rehearse the bar finals as many times as possible. Then taking the quiz, reading and remembering. You also mentioned that I'm actually recapping for the benefit of those who are just coming in, because I'm seeing that we're gaining traction and many people are just coming in now. And you also mentioned that sometimes you read and you don't remember. But if you pick up your pen and try to answer those questions, you'll see that you actually know what you read. So it's more like maybe you're not being able to remember your feet, but if you sit down and take out a pen and a paper, you'll see that you're actually flowing and you know what the whole the question is about. Then you said the first part of the exam is MCQ. And usually in our time, we had the MCQ on Saturday while the essay of bar final spanned across the following week. So after the MCQ, as you mentioned rightly, corporate law was, it's a story to be told. And there were so many foreign questions that we saw there, and many people actually gave up. And after that MCQ, you see that, you know, the morale for the exam actually not exactly dropped, because the ideal thing is that you shouldn't let the immediate past exam or the MCQ affect your other exams. As a matter of fact, immediately you're dropping your pen for either an MCQ or a course that you took maybe the previous day, you just forget about it and look forward. I think just forget about it and look forward. Maybe after your bar finals on the Saturday, after you've rested, you take out all your questions and start looking at it. But maybe after the exams, forget about it and look forward. So the experience of the past wouldn't affect what you're doing in the future. And, you know, it will really that mistake you thought you made the previous day wouldn't replicate itself. And even most times, what you thought was actually a mistake wasn't exactly a mistake. I remember my property law, after the first course, that's property law. There was a question, I think the composite question, it looked like they were telling us to draft a deed of assignment, and it also looked like a power of attorney. Some people drafted the both. I think I drafted maybe power of attorney or deed of assignment, but I thought I was wrong. So it really demoralized me. Then I spoke to my friends, and they told me to just forget about it and look forward. And I think that advice really, really helped me, because my moral would have, you know, dampened and that affected the other courses I took along the line. Then you talked about prayers. I mean, it cannot be overemphasized. You have to pray, because there are so many factors. You're reading for 9 months to take an exam that will last barely 3 hours. So you're reading for 9 months, you come into the MCQ hall, it's just 1 hour. So any mistake you make would really, really be, you know, fatal. It's just 1 hour, you have 100 questions, and you have to put in your best foot. The remaining other days, you have 3 hours to pour out all what you've read for 9 months. And if anything happens by mistake, something happens, God forbid, that means you're coming back the next year. So prayer, you know, works like it goes into the spiritual realm to, you know, keep everything in place and make lines fall in pleasant places for you. Then you say, don't confuse yourself with slides from other campuses. If they're clashing topics, let me say Abuja has a different topic, or different perspective to a particular topic, while Lagos has, I think you just focus, as Maiwa rightly said, just focus on what your campus taught, and, you know, to avoid confusing yourself. Lecturers in your campus is always right. So, and you said that it's never too late to try a new technique. So, Maiwa, I think you contradicted yourself here, and I think I would ask for clarity. You said you should, you know, keep to what you always do. If you read, if you sleep, if you're reading for 2 hours and sleeping for 3 hours, you should keep to it. And that's on one hand. And on the other hand, you said that we shouldn't be, you know, afraid to try new techniques, right? So I want you to just balance this out and advise us on it.
Okay, thank you, Rex. Sorry, you said I mentioned that, keep to your technique. So if you read for so number of hours, do this. If you just to clarify what you said, right?
Yeah, on one hand you said they should keep to their technique. That's what has been working for you. You should just keep to it. Then on the other hand, you said you should not be afraid to try a new technique. So I want to.
Maybe you misunderstood what I was trying to say. So I would not say you should keep to your technique, right? Because if your technique has been that, you don't sleep, you're just always reading, and you don't rest, I would not advise you to continue with that technique, because then you might now start complaining that, I'm not really understanding, even though I'm spending so many hours reading. Fine, you might not really be a fast learner, but try to rest. If your technique is not working for you, use another technique. It's 1 month. You can always, you can try something new, but I'll just always advise that you always try to rest and eat. I don't know if that kind of clarifies. I don't recall. I would not advise that you just stick to the same technique you've been using, because what if the technique is not working for you? You need to try something else before it's too late.
Okay, thank you very, very much for that clarity. We have one question in the comment section. I think we can just take that question now. It says, Ms. Mayowa, is it necessary to enroll for tutorials or mentorship class outside the law school?
Okay, just before I answer that question, I would like to mention that I know that some people, no matter how the lecture is being taught in class, even there were times that, like, no matter what the lecturer was saying, I still didn't get it. There are just some topics like that. Some people might get it, some people might not. It's normal. And they might need that, they might feel like, oh, and then some people are just not really comfortable with the fact that we have thousands of students in a class. They would prefer like a one-on-one interaction to understand better. So like the first thing I will say is that I know some people might have done this already since the externship period has passed. Some people might have read ahead and read topics to be taught in class ahead. But one thing I always did was that whenever we're having a topic, I must read that topic before I entered into that classroom. There was a day I did not read a particular topic. I can't remember. I think I was just overwhelmed. And then I didn't read that topic. When I went to class that day, I just hated myself because I didn't really understand anything the lecturer was saying. So like from then I was like, I would never come into class without reading. Even if it's just, it doesn't have to be like an extensive reading, just like have an overview of what's going to be taught, even if it's just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or 30 minutes reading of the topic for the next day. It will help you because the lecturers will not really go deep and try to explain to make every single person in class understand. So the best thing you can do to yourself is read before, try to understand what the topic is about, look at the task questions, and try to just look at it based on what you've read. And you might not be able to answer those questions at the moment, but you might have an idea that, okay, I just read this and this is what they're trying to ask me based on what I read, right? So once you read before class, understanding in class would be easier. So if you don't read before class and you go to class, you might be able to understand maybe 30% of what was taught, and then you now have to spend extra hours trying to understand on your own. But if you read before class, you'll be at a good 70%, and then you just remaining 30% is something that you just do and it will take less time to understand. So now that I've said that, so that one will really help. Then even after like reading before class, staying in class and reading after class, you still do not really understand and you feel like you just need somebody else. Sometimes it happens, like I go and meet my friends or practicing lawyers, I ask them, please, can you explain this principle to me? Like, I just can't seem to understand this. You can register for tutorials, but just note that these tutorials, the people that are taking these tutorials are not your lecturers. They can just guide you, but they don't really know the syllabus or the scheme. And you know that the law is dynamic, it changes over time. So in the set before my set, they didn't use CAMA 2020. My set is using CAMA 2020. My set, meet the amendments to CAMA and other laws made by the Business Facilitation Act. But this new set, they are meeting it. So those people that might be taking tutorials, they'll be aware, but they might not really be aware so much of what the lecturers really want you to know about these changes. I know that in my set for CAMA 2020, there were a lot of changes made, and they knew the ones that they wanted you to know, and then they highlighted them in class. So these people that are taking you tutorials might not really be able to know the mind of the because lecturers have agreed among themselves that, oh, this is what we should. But like for general explanation and understanding, they can assist you, but that is if you require it, but it is not determinant for you passing or not. You can, if you feel like you need it, then fine, but just don't let it stop you from attending classes. And you should give priority to your classes and what your lecturer said, that you can add that as a supplement. But if you are good without it, then that's fine. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think your answer is just perfect. So we have just one more question and answer session box. It says, my problem is remembering authorities, especially as a corporate law practice. Any advice in this regard?
All right. So remembering authorities, as I said earlier, that's like the major problem for a lot of students, recalling we all read, we all know we read, but like trying to remember just poses a major problem. And something I would say that will help is active recall. I mentioned this earlier, that just randomly quizzing yourself. Oh, please just try to, and like don't try to cram. So like there are a lot of sections to know in corporate law in all these courses, and it might be a lot. So like the way I try to know the sections was that, okay, wherever I saw a section, so if I see, oh, section 330 whatever that talks on secretary, I see it in a textbook or any material in my class, I had written it down in class, lecturer had mentioned it, I don't just write it down in my notes. Oh, section 330 says that a secretary should blah, blah, blah. I always like go to the act itself to read what that section says. Reading it kind of makes me understand better and just makes me kind of know it. So I'm able to like sort of visualize, and I know that, okay, 330 down to maybe 337 talks on secretary. So I know that something about the appointment, the removal of secretary lies around that area. I know that, okay, for directors, it starts from like 269 down to 2 something, and it's like constantly like opening my act wherever I see that provision to just look at it, kind of just makes me remember it more. Even when I'm asking first questions and I write it down, or maybe I didn't know it and I see it, I just check to be sure, because those things can make mistake in anything.
Okay, thank you very, very, very much, Maiwa. I think I really understood you, and I hope every other person did. Because
Book or any material, just check stays more. Doing past questions for particular section is relevant. Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you now. We lost you for a bit. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I realized that, oh, this particular section is relevant and I didn't know it. The fact that I didn't know it, I will just try to know it from that moment and try to actively remember, active recall. So solving past questions, trying to actively remember, trying to check your act. So let me just use professional ethics as an example. We have rules 1 to 54 thereabouts of the RPC, and I know some people, I'm not saying this is bad, I know some people just read, oh, rule 1 to 54, they knew like, oh, rule 1 is this, rule 2 is this, rule 2. But I didn't do it that way, although I actually knew most of the rules. I didn't really think it would work for me that way, trying to like cram it that way. What I did was, that with each topic and a rule is mentioned, I just go to that rule and just try to know that, oh, that was what worked for me. Some people what might work for them is just knowing everything, but like I wouldn't really advise on that too, because what's the point of like knowing rule 1 to rule 50 whatever, and then when you get to exam you're not even able to apply the rule. But I read it on a topic basis, so where we have confidentiality of a legal practitioner, that's like rule 19, or when I'm reading that topic, I go to rule 19 and then it just stays. I answer past questions, I cite rule 19. If I don't cite rule 19, if I'm marking myself, I'll see that, oh, I did not cite rule 19, I'll add it. And also some things are just really, really similar. You can just try to know. I know that it was rule 19 for RPC. It was, I think, section 192 or 196 for the Evidence Act. That's 19. So like those kind of things were just, some things are really, really similar, and they can just help you know. Also, quizzing yourself, as I said, quizzing your friends. And if you feel that you know something, you can explain to people. So a lot of people were just telling me that, oh, you know, corporate law, can you explain to me? I didn't feel like I know it, but like I was just always following in class and always, not like I used to answer questions, but just answering it within the circle where I sit. And they're like, please, can you explain this to me? So like me explaining to people made me know it more, because it's a way of reading. Sometimes I might not even really know. I'll just be reading it and then be reading it, but like I'm learning too. So if you can explain to people, if you can, then that's fine. Explain to your friend, whoever, anybody, just be like, okay, do you know what this is? Like, oh, they don't know. Can I explain to you? Or they can even come and meet you if they feel like, if it's your strong point and you might just need to work on it better. You can try to explain to people, actively recall, quiz yourself, quiz people, past questions, when you mark yourself, try to go back. If you feel like you don't know anything, go back. So I know that, okay, we are reading from week 1 to week 20, and we just only want to do revise and go back to week 1. So there's nothing bad in, oh, you are in week 16 of your reading, but if you are like doing past questions, or you just remember a random topic, or a lecturer now asks something in class about a topic that has been done before, you can go back to week 12 to just try to remember certain sections or certain cases in that week. You don't have to do it like chronologically that, oh, I'm in week 16 and it's week 16 I'm reading, and then week 17 next. If you remember something in a particular topic in week 7, you're trying to remember what's the section, you can just go back, and like, it doesn't have to be that, oh, in a particular way. That way you just be restricting yourself. So you can just go back to that particular week, or that particular, especially when you're answering past questions, that particular topic that you've done before, and then you didn't really remember a lot. Just go back to that question. And then on past questions too, I know like there's some questions that are really notorious, and when you're solving past questions, don't just restrict yourself to those particular questions that always come out, but it's just to guide you on that topic and like similar questions that can come around. So they might ask you a particular question this year on a topic, but they might ask you another question on that same topic. So you know that, oh, this topic is very, very important, and like I should not play with it. And this topic, there's no topic that is not important, actually. All topics are important. But so somebody was asking me something, and I said that, like, how do they retain? And I said this, especially in corporate law, for procedures now, you have like how do you change your name or something like that, and it's like 20 steps. And like, how do I know this? And then you have alteration of share capital, you have re-registration with different procedures. Just know that they don't expect you to know all those 20 procedures, all those 20 steps. They don't expect you to know everything. What's at the back of your mind? Then also look at it. Okay, what are the ones that always, the constant procedures? We always have a general meeting. A board meeting first. Then we have a general meeting. Then when they now pass a special resolution or ordinary resolution, then after that, you make filings to the CAC. Those ones are constant, like for whatever you want to do, like those are like the most constant steps. All right. So that filings part, you now have to start determining whether it's 41 days, 40 days, 14 days, 15 days. There were ways I used to like know that one, but I don't know if you want to know, maybe you can ask me that. But then you now have like the main procedure. So I would say that if we have, let's say, 10 procedures, I'll rather with 20 steps, I'll rather know 10 steps in those 10 procedures than just knowing 20 steps in 5 procedures. I don't know if that makes sense, but that makes sense. So I'll rather know something in everything than know everything in just one thing. So that's something that really helped me. I wasn't really focused on trying to know everything about the particular topic, because nobody can have 100 over 100. I don't know, it's highly unlikely, right? And you can't even get 100 over 100. So you don't have, no matter what you write. So you don't have to like know everything. It's not even possible. Nobody, even lecturer, they don't know. You can't know everything about the topic, but like know a substantial amount, like a good 80% of it, and then you're good. So those procedures, you can just pick the really, really important ones, the ones that you feel like, oh, they're really important, or they have to get this particular document, they have to file this document. There's some other ones that are there, but like you can just do without those ones, and they will still match you right, because they don't expect you to list all these 30, 20 procedures. So you rather know something about everything than knowing everything about just one thing. I think that one would also help. So like with that in mind, you won't really burden yourself and start stressing yourself, because those procedures and those topics are a lot in corporate law. And I think that was the way I was able to navigate it. And I also just tried to relate it to myself. I just try to imagine, I have a company. What will I do if I was in this situation? And just I say, okay, I'm going to file this to CSC. Okay, my secretary will do this. But that was what worked for me. Some people might have their own way of trying to remember this thing. So that's what I would say. I don't know if that answers your question. Do you have any other
particular question from you in that regard, or did I cover the field?
I think you covered the field and you even did more. So thank you very much. You said know something about everything. So on that, I'll just say that if you know something about everything, and in fact, this quote that was in front of our lecture hall back then in law school, it says a little more, a bit more. So if you know something about everything, and at every point when you're trying to read or rehearse, you want to know a bit more of that something you know, eventually you see that you know almost everything about everything. And I think that's the goal, and that's what everybody should aspire, where everybody should aspire to be. So thank you very much, Mayowa, for the exposition. I'm sure everybody here, all aspirants to the bar, really enjoyed and took a very good chunk of what you said. So on that note, would reserve all other questions for the end of this session. On that note, we have our next speaker in the house who will be speaking to us on starting out their career in the legal profession. His name is Chukwudi Ofili, but I think we'll be calling him Mr. Chudi Ofili. He's Director of Legal at Renew Capital. So I'll just read out his resume before he jumps right in. So Chudi Ofili is a licensed attorney in the state of New York and in Nigeria. He's currently the Director of Legal at Renew Capital, an Africa-focused investment firm. Prior to joining Renew Capital, he was a partner at a commercial law firm in Lagos, Nigeria. Chudi received the 2023 Rising Star Award from the Africa Corporate and Governance Council Forum. He has also been named the Rising Star Partner and National Leader in Nigeria by Legal Directories International Financial Law Review, that's the IFLR, and Who is Who Legal. His international experience includes stints as a visiting lawyer at Trinity International LLP in London, United Kingdom, and as an extern at the Coca-Cola Company in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. Mr. Chudi holds a first-class degree, a Bachelor of Laws from Babcock University in Nigeria, and a Master of Laws from University of Georgia School of Law in the United States. He also has a FinTech certificate from the INSEAD Business School in Fontainebleau, France. So on that note, we'll be welcoming Chudi Ofili to have the floor. Thank you very much and very warm welcome, sir. Sorry, sir, if you don't mind, would like you to put on your camera so we'd have the physical touch to see you.
All right, sure. No.
Mr. Chudi, are you there?
Hi, Rex, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Welcome. Sir.
Okay. Yeah, apologies, I dropped off very briefly.
Okay.
It's a pleasure to speak with everybody. I know that I have about 30 minutes. So this is essentially going to be an informal conversation because I know that you're essentially at the point where you're going to be making decisions on, how to kickstart your legal career. And that for most of you, that essentially starts from your NYSE year, right? Rex, that's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I remember back then when I was in law school, just about to write my bar exam. To be honest, at that point, I don't think that it was as competitive as what you have today in terms of, people trying to get into the very top law firms. Beyond that, I think most of us were just concentrating on, trying to pass the bar exam. But these days is actually very different. So you're thinking about the bar exam, you're also thinking about how to get that first job, right? And I'll say that the first step is actually, trying your best to get the best possible grades that you can get, because that's where it all starts from more often than not, right? So what class of degree do you get? And that's not to say that if for some reason you're unable to get the best grades possible from the Nigerian law school, that spells doom for you. No, I don't think that that's what it is. But in as much as you have not started that process yet of writing the exam, I think that everybody should have as their goal to get the best possible grades that they can get. The better your grades, the better your chances, right, at the start of your career. And that's just the truth. That's what it is. And beyond what you get as your grades is also what other skills you have developed while you're in school, right? So, like I said, it's become very competitive. Find that more people who graduated first class in the past couple of years than you've probably ever had in the Nigerian law school. So, again, because the access to information, the tools that people use to study means that, there's sort of a more level playing field in terms of academics and grades. But then what sets you apart would be the other skills that you have, right? And the kind of work experience, if any, that you've had before you decide to start applying for jobs. But what I would say, after you've sorted everything about grades, doing your best possible to get the best, result that you can get, is first of all to do a research on all the law firms that are available in the country, right? You find that most of the biggest law firms, from perspective of size, the kinds of transactions or the kinds of cases that they do, you typically find them in the commercial nerve centers in Nigeria. So you're talking about Lagos, to a lesser extent, you're talking about Abuja, Port Harcourt, and maybe Kano in the north, right? So I would say do your research on the best law firms, top law firms, and you can easily get those rankings using things like Legal 500, IFLR. IFLR is International Financial Law Review, and Who's Who Legal, who tells you who the top lawyers are and law firms, right? So once you've done that research, you can then begin to narrow down, let's say your top 10 law firms that you like to work at, right? And in doing that research, you also have to, put into consideration what kind of law you want to practice. Do you want to be a litigation lawyer? Do you want to be a commercial lawyer? If you actually have no preference, then you can then just have a wider pool within which you choose, law firms to apply for. But what I usually advise is that you apply to all the firms, within tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and even tier 4. That's in terms of the rankings, right? So that you spread your options. You're not just limited to the very top law firms. Like I said, competition is very tough. Once you've done that research and you've outlined what the best law firms are and the ones that you like to work at because they align with your goals, right? You then begin to prepare your CV. Your CV is very, very important, right? Because before anybody meets you, like a recruiter, a partner, a senior associate, they look at your CV first. So what does your CV say about you? Beyond what is contained in your CV, right? There's also stuff around branding. Your CV says a lot about you. How does it look? Is it properly formatted? Are there mistakes in your CV, right? Those things are very, very important. Your punctuation, your formatting, make sure it's as clean as possible. Make sure it's as easy to read as possible, right? Use simple sentences, avoid compound sentences, highlight your academic achievements, right? Schools you went to. Beyond all of those, something that I know that has become very useful in trying to land a job would be your extracurricular activities, right? Like I said, almost everybody has a first class, a 2-1. Everybody has an intern at Aluko, Olaniwa Ajayi. Everybody does internships now. So what exactly sets you apart from the other person is, what are those extracurricular things that you've done in the past or that you currently do, right? That shows to people that there is more about you than the other person, right? What value add can you bring to the law firm, right? So those are things you should have in your CV. So for some people who like to, as funny as it sounds, right? If you have some, like, you code, you write music, you know how to organize events, just those things that you think that perhaps have no place in a law firm, they actually are very important, because beyond the practice of law, lawyers also do other functions within the law firms. So that's where you bring your value add, the things that you can add to the law. It's also helpful to add your extracurricular activities. Also good to highlight accomplishments, right? So if you're an intern somewhere, what exactly did you do there? Did you help in achieving a goal while you were at that law firm, right? So you should focus more on those achievements and the roles that you played, in meeting those goals and those objectives within those organizations, right? So your CV should actually present you in the best possible light before they get to meet you, right? And then once you've done your CV, you should have it reviewed by somebody who is a practicing lawyer. Just have someone who has more experience, years of experience, to give you pointers to review them and make sure that the CV is done properly. The other thing that a lot of people miss with applications, especially when you're starting out your career, is that you need to apply early, right? A lot of times people don't get the messages when they say, oh, this firm is looking to hire NYC associates or first year associates. So you apply after the deadline. That already puts you at a disadvantage. Often or not, your CV will get thrown out or will not be picked. So always apply early. Very, very important. So beyond applying through the official, portal and channels, another thing that I think that is very useful when you're starting out your career is to try and build relationships with people in the law firms that you've identified, right? And in the age of social media, particularly LinkedIn, right? It's a very good tool to use in trying to build relationships with people in these law firms. An easy way to build relationships is just to look for perhaps. So let me give you an example. So if you knew I used to work at the law firm and then you reached out to me and you say, hi Chudi, or hi Mr. Ophili, I read an article that you wrote 3 days ago on data protection. I particularly like your take on XYZ, right? I like your take on XYZ because I also think, blah, blah, blah. And then, you follow on with something that says, you'd like to have a conversation about X topic, or interestingly, I also applied to your law firm and I think that your law firm is XYZ and would add XYZ to me. And these are the skill sets that I have that I think would be useful within the firm. So beyond just sending an application, it also helps to build relationships, connect with people within those firms, and you'll be surprised that somebody who's taking a liking to you or sees that you're a great guy, a great lady that can be a good team member would make a case for you when your CV is brought up, right? So networking is also very, very useful. And I employ everyone on this call to start as soon as possible to network and connect with lawyers within law firms and other organizations. The other thing I would say is branding, right? It's not too early to start your branding as a lawyer. So branding would be, how visible are you within the legal community? What conferences do you attend? Do you write articles? What articles do you write? What topical issues are you able to discuss? So it's good to be very visible. It also helps to be consistent. One thing that branding and visibility does for you is that by the time your name comes up, either through your CV or people are having conversations and your name rings a bell, oh, I've seen XYZ article that this person has written, or he was on a panel where he spoke, or at some point in law school I heard he did XYZ. Those things are actually things that actually help you and speak for you, right? So branding is very key, and you should start as soon as possible at the beginning of your career. I would also say that continuous legal education is also very important. So just after your bar exam, don't think that that's the end and it's time for me to rest and chill. The reality is that that's when it just starts. So you have to keep reading, keep taking courses. It's called the internet for articles. Read people's articles on LinkedIn. Follow law firms and read their regulatory updates, their articles on different areas of law, and that's how you keep yourself up to date. I know a lot of people have questions around, oh, when I'm starting my career, do I want to be a litigator? Do I want to do transactional law? I would say for some people, they know right from the get-go what they want to do, and then they tailor their career path along those lines. But for many people, they actually don't know. Sometimes it's fate, right? If you believe in fate. But other times, I think that it's always good to go into a law firm that has as much experience as possible and has a wide variety of practice areas for you to just test the waters, and then you find what actually works for you and fits your skill set. So if you're able to get into that kind of environment, that's very good for you. It'll help you to actually try out different things and then figure out what works best for you. A lot of times we don't know what we are good at or what we eventually will become successful at until we try. So that's why I always advise that people get into law firms that give you that opportunity to do as much as you can in different practice areas or areas that's litigation, transactional law, and even within transactions, right? You do as many things as possible: corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions, tech. Just try it all, capital markets, and then see what actually sticks and works for you. So I just wanted to talk very quickly for 15 minutes, and then the rest of it will be question and answer. I just wanted to set the tone. So I'm happy to take questions, areas that are bothering you, things that you think you'd like to get clarity on.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Trudy, for the very exposing, session of speech. If you have any question, you can drop it in the Q&A box or in the chat box. So Mr. Trudy is very well happy to entertain all the questions and provide answers to them.
Yeah, there's a question from Paul. So how do I know when law firms advertise for vacancy in the firms, as it is rare to find one today? So the reality is that firms actually do advertise when they are taking in applications for the NYSC program. So like I said, if you follow firms on their social media platforms, so Instagram, LinkedIn, you'd see when they put up applications. Put up call for applications for NYSC. In any event, right, whether or not you see a post calling for applications, just send your applications to all the law firms once you've done that research that I said, right, which is outline the law firm. Just send your CVs. I know people who have already sent in their CVs. Some people who I mentor, I review their CVs. They have already sent them in your set, right? So, they're trying to beat the queue. I think that's what they're doing. So yes, you can send even without getting a call. So after your bar finals, is this a good time to begin sending applications? To be honest, the top law firms, more often than not, they like to receive applications even before you write your exams, right? Some will still receive after the exams. Like I said, they're just trying to get the best students as soon as possible. I know that when I joined Alukwano Body for my NYSC, I actually got shortlisted before my bar exam. So the results that were used, they used that thing that is like a mock exam, right? That's what was used. So the sooner you send in those applications, the better. So there's a question from. So what happens if I cannot get into a top law firm, especially considering it's hard to get in post NYC? Yeah, so that's one question I usually get. Again, there aren't so many firms that can take in all the law students that get called to the Nigerian bar. So if for some reason you're not able to get into a top law firm, that's why I said you should cast your net wide and also apply to firms, let's say tier 3, tier 4. The most important thing is that you get into a law firm where you're going to learn as much as you can, right? Build your skill sets, get as much experience as you can, and then continue to apply to these law firms, even after your NYC. I found that a lot of times after NYC, a lot of people will go for like masters, people change jobs. So there will always be openings, right? That's why your NYC year, you should continue to develop yourself so that you can use whatever it is you've done, leverage that experience to then move up the ladder. So let's say from tier 4 to tier 2 and then tier 1. So, if it doesn't happen during NYC, it definitely can always happen the year after or 2 years after. So don't really sweat it. So people who have served before going to law school. So yeah, it's typically a challenge for people who serve before coming to law school, because what law firms would typically do is hire people for the NYSC role, right? So if you've done it the other way around, it can be a little bit tricky. But having said that, nothing stops you from applying, but you'd be applying not as an NYSC associate, but to join as a proper first year associate. Again, your application should be tailored, along those lines, not as NYSC, and then make it very clear what you're looking to achieve or what position you want to take. And I don't think that that's really a big issue. Just make sure that your application is clear. What number of pages should a CV typically be? So ideally, I don't think there's any reason why your CV should be more than 2 pages, right? At most 2 pages. And the reason why I say so is that you're just leaving school. There isn't much that you've done, right, in terms of work experience. So you don't want your CV to be too long. Again, you have hundreds and hundreds of people applying. So you want your CV to be as, brief, succinct, and as clear as possible. Just drive home the points that you want people to see. So 2 pages max, 1 page is fine, to be honest. Is it right to have the applicant's picture on CV? No, please don't do that. Yeah, there's no need for that, to be honest. So what happens if during your NYSC you get into a firm that shapes your path towards a particular practice group and you want to break away from that? Yeah, so I'll give myself as an example very quickly, right? My NYSC, even though I worked at Alukwano Body, but I started out doing litigation during NYSC. But after NYSC, I quickly realized that, although before NYSC, I always wanted to be a transactional lawyer. So, but after I did litigation, which was very helpful, right? Because I think it made me a better, transactional lawyer. I switched after that year and I started doing transactional law. And throughout the years, I started with finance. I started to do all kinds of finance. At some point, I did tax, I did projects. So as you continue to grow in your profession, especially when you work at a very top law firm that has, all of these practice areas, you are able to just, switch and do as much as you can. So the fact that you started with a niche law firm doesn't stop you from pivoting at some point if you feel that, you want to do something different. I know people who did litigation for like 4 years, 5 years, and then switched into transactions and vice versa, right? And today they're partners at law firms, general counsels um, outside of law firms. So is there an age limit for application? I'm not sure that there's an age limit for application in most law firms, except I'm mistaken. I haven't seen that before. So irrespective of how old you are, you should be able to apply. Can I highlight keywords that help CV stand out more? So another tip, right? When you're writing your CV, so a lot of people use one CV for all the job applications. That's actually not a good thing to do. So your CV should actually be tailored to each job. So when they do a call for application, right? Some of these jobs would have like what you call a job description in the job post. Sometimes they don't. But if they do, it's good to look at what that job description is and then incorporate some of those key terms or words in that JD into your CV, right? For example, if you're applying abroad, I know when they're trying to sift through CVs, they use those softwares that would help them pick CVs that have, those buzzwords that were used in the JD, right? So, but I don't think that's something that happens in Nigeria. But in any event, make sure your CV is tailored to each law firm, right? And what you think they are looking out for. Again, it goes back to what I said, doing your research about the law firms. So your CV has to match what that law firm is known for, kind of people they like to hire, etc. Do I need to make a first class before getting into a tier 1 firm? No. Like I said, your CV is what presents that first picture about who you are, right? Yes, if you have a first class, it's great. But a lot of times that's not all that people are looking out for. They want to know who you are as a person, what you've done, whilst you're in school, what other things make you who you are, right? And what kind of results and goals you have achieved as a person. There's a lot that your CV says about you, not just that you're smart and intelligent. Are you someone who is willing to learn? Are you teachable, right? Do you have drive? Are you willing to achieve goals? It's just not, yeah, it might be a first class, but you're proud, you're arrogant, you just don't fit into that culture. So there are many things they're looking out for. So you need to put your best foot forward when you're preparing your CV, right? And yeah, some law firms will say, minimum of 2-1. But even at that, doesn't stop you from applying if you had a 2-2, even if you had a pass, right? You just have to accentuate your other qualities above, that class of degree and see if that sways whoever is trying to pick people for interview. Yeah, I think I've gone through all the questions that are here. Okay, what's the place of cover letter in law firm application? Yeah, so very good question. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so it's always good to also have a cover letter. Your cover letter can, add a bit of color to what you have in your CV, right? Especially telling us why you like the law firm, why you want to work at the law firm, why you think you're a good fit, and that's where you can try and talk about all your other good qualities, and how you've been able to help people achieve goals, your organizations that you've been able to achieve goals, etc. Yeah. I think, yeah, I think that's all that I can see on my screen. Is there anything that I've missed?
Yeah, so 2 questions just dropped in the chat box.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between a resume and the CV?
Oh yeah, great question. So resume is usually like a very brief, the shorter version, it's like a summary, right, of your CV. So it's usually like 30, sorry, it's usually like 1 page, right? It's like a pager. CV is a little bit longer. Again, at your level, whether it's a resume or CV, I don't expect it to be more than 2 pages. What's your advice to someone who does not want to practice? So I don't know what you mean by practice. That means you don't want to be a lawyer at all, or you don't want to work in a law firm. So once you studied law, you have a lot of options before you, right? Um, so you can go into academia, you can work in a law firm, you can work in an organization. That's legal department in an organization. You can even, decide to do something totally different. You can become an investment analyst. You can, the options are a lot, once you study law. But I always advise people that at least for your NYSC year, just try it out, like work in a law firm, right? Get into a very good law firm and just have that experience of practicing law. You don't want to shut that door too early on in your career, right? So just give it at least 1 year, and your NYSC year is a perfect year to sort of test the waters and see if it appeals to you, works for you. However, if you're very sure that you don't want to practice law at all, you want to do something entirely different, um, feel free to do that. But I would advise that you have conversations with your mentor if you have one, just to sort of talk through why you are making that decision, and to be sure that that's the right decision for you. All right, I think I'm out of time.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you very much, Mr. Trudy. I think every other question will come after the session, or would forward it to you if you don't stay to the end. I personally enjoyed your session, and all what you said is practical and palpable. You can feel it, you can see it. So thank you very much for and answers. The way you surgically answered all the questions is just perfect. Thank you very, very, very
All
much.
right, cheers. Thank you. Bye.
So on that note, we'll be inviting the next speaker, who is as well speaking on the theme, starting out the career in the legal profession. His name is Caleb. Caleb Adebayo is an associate at Allen and Overy LLP, New York, United States of America. Okay. Caleb is an associate with the New York office of Allen and Overy LLP, where he works on the securitization team, advising on innovative financing structures for cross-border ABS and CLO deals. His interests lie at the intersection of finance, capital markets, securitization, ESG, environmental law, and clean energy. Caleb is an alumnus of NYU Law, where he was also the university's student ambassador to the New York City Bar Association, and a member of the NYCBA's Energy Committee. He's also an International Finance Corporation Fellow of NYU's IFD Fellowship. Caleb is happily married to his sweetheart, Uzoma. Welcome, Mr. Caleb. We're so happy to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Rex, and thank you to everyone who is here tonight, tonight at your end. And really, I do appreciate that you guys are able to be available so late in the day, so late on a Sunday for something like this. I'll dive right in. Thank you, everyone. I'll be talking to you about starting out a career in the legal profession. I recently gave a talk, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, very similar to this. So it seems like, I'm talking about this very often. I have 20 minutes to speak, and then I hear that 10 minutes for questions. And so I'll go through this as quickly as I can. I'll preface with this one fact, that your 6+ X years, for those who schooled in Nigeria, X is, or let's call it K, is a constant, which is ASU strike or or your school was closed for something. The number of years differs, but it's just always there, except for those who went to private schools. So those 6 plus whatever years of school has not prepared you for the world of work. That is a sad fact, but it is the fact that you are not ready for the world of work just yet, because the world of work is markedly different from what you have seen in those 6 years of school. However, there's always good news, and the good news is that you can get yourself ready. That's why you're in a session like this. And I'm sure that all the other speakers have done justice to their topics, as well as those who would speak after I speak. But 3 things that you should know as you start out before I go down to the highlighted number of things that the profession will demand of you as you're starting out a career in it. 3 things that are very important. First, I'll just say that the legal profession is a very rewarding one. Now, do not mind some of the things you may have seen, because the truth is this, in Nigeria, you find those who are very successful in it, and then you find those who, you look at them and you really don't want to be a lawyer. But nevertheless, understand that the legal profession is very rewarding, whether in Nigeria or in any part of the world. Now, 3 things you should keep in mind as you start out is that first, and I understand that the people here are those who are just finishing up law school. So you're really just about to get into the world of work. Now, the first thing you need to remember and understand is that you need to determine what you want out of the profession. The profession will only give you what you put in. So you need to start determining what you want. Now, understand that the legal profession, and I just heard Judy, who just, Mr. Philly, who just left, talk about the fact that you should explore, you should give yourself the opportunity to explore or to understand, different areas of law from the person who asked about practicing before you decide, okay, I'm going here, I'm going there. It's very important to decide what you want, right? Because everyone who has decided to study law doesn't want the same thing. Some people studied it because their parents pushed them to it. Some people studied it because they saw too many a season of Suits. Some people studied it because they saw Boston Legal. Some other people studied it because they have an uncle, an aunt who speaks big language, and they just admire the big language, and they really believe that law was about speaking big language. And some people just really like the practice of law. Now, at this point, however, you probably have come to a point where you have sort of realized that it is one way or the other, or one thing or the other, and that law is either what you wanted it to be, or what you thought it will be, or it's not. Now, at this point, people begin to move into divergent phases. You would see those who finish law school with you who will decide never to do a day of practicing law. So no litigation, no corporate law, no transactional work, nothing. And they just find a path. Now, you will also see those who decided to go into a very niche area, sports law, entertainment law. Now, you'd also see those who decide they want to be the best thing, in litigation since sliced bread. And then they go into a litigation pathway. And then you'll see those who decide they want to be very top-notch transactional lawyers. You need to decide where you want to be. Now, the truth is that you may not be able to decide that now. In fact, you probably will not, but you will be able to determine what you want out of the profession. Now, you may not know, well, is it litigation? Is it arbitration? Is it M&A? Is it IP? Is it capital markets? But you would know that, well, I want to be a lawyer, and I want to be the best lawyer there is. And so in starting out, you then need to you need to begin to focus on the questions. So typically a number of you next thing is your NYSC. I know there are a couple of people who have done NYSC before now, but for a number of you, it's your NYSC year. And you'll be working either at the law firm or somewhere else. You need to start asking yourself the questions of, am I enjoying what I am doing? If not, why? What is it that I'm not seeing? What is it that I'm not experiencing? What is this experience like? If I'm doing litigation, is this something that I think I would like to do for the rest of my life? If I'm doing transactional work, what about this excites me or does not excite me? Now, a number of firms, typically the top firms, will allow you to rotate as a first year. So you're able to go through different teams on at the firm so that you're able to experience the different aspects of working within this legal field. Now, if you have that, all well and good, but some of you will not have that. So you need to find ways to sort of interact with these other areas and interrogate them. So if you are at a firm, you end up at a firm that is core litigation, and I know a number of you will serve in different parts of the country. In some parts of the country, they have no transactional expertise at all. So you would find yourself doing work that is core litigation. Now, in those places, you may have, and again, so with everyone, it differs, which is why you need to start determining. Some people before now know that, look, I have done some internships or things while I was in school, and I know that I don't want to do litigation. Now, and you find yourself in a litigation firm serving, there's useful knowledge you can gain within the 1 year, and that is very true. I did litigation for a year and close to 2 years before I moved into the transactional side. And there are lessons in litigation that would remain very useful for you, whether or not you decide you're going on with it. So the idea is, if you find yourself there in the first year, even though that's not where you want to be, you want to start figuring out what are the lessons I can take from here and being your best at it, while at the same time doing your best to learn the theory side of the transactional work you would like to do. Because you don't have access to the practical side, you don't work at a transactional law firm, it's only the theories available to you, but it's available to you because you have the internet. So if you say, well, I'm interested in M&A, well, be a litigation lawyer in Kogi State, but at the same time, continue reading on M&A, because the next step for you will be, I want to transition to an M&A firm. And they may not expect you to know so much, but they'll ask you, well, expect you to know so much about the practical, but they'll ask you, well, what do you know about M&A? And you're able to tell them, well, there's this and this and this and that, and there's this deal that closed the other day, and it was one of the biggest M&As coming out of Africa, and there's this other one that is happening here and here. And so they understand that while you may not have the experience, you have the knowledge, and you're willing to level up. Right. So you need to start determining, what do I want out of this profession from day one? What do I really want? For those of you who know where you're heading to, beautiful. You want to keep going. For those of you who don't, you need to start finding ways to figure that out, right? And perhaps internships and the networking that people are doing now as students might have really helped. So if you've been doing that in the past, that has really helped you, that is great. The good news is that a lot of your extracurricular would also help you with the right soft skills that I will be sort of outlining in a bit. But I said I was going to tell you 3 things. So that's the first, right? The second thing is, not everyone, and I think I might have said it when I started on the first thing, not everyone will get into top firms. Get that straight. Not everybody will do their NYSE, or in fact, the years after that, in top firms, right? There are only so few top firms. So if you find yourself in a firm that is not a top firm, you need to find out how to thrive, because thriving is not dependent on being in a top firm. Oh, I didn't get into the BNIs or the Templaces or the donors or the OALPs. And then that is the end of my career or the profession for me. No, it's not. You can thrive from wherever you are, but you need to start understanding that from the get-go. The third thing is, your service year, for those of you who will be going to service, is not your flex year. Now, that's one of the mistakes people have made, to think that the year they are serving is the year of flex. Like, this is how I flex my life. This is when I just, enjoy. I don't really have to do anything. Because some of the firms you work in, especially litigation firms, who have the first year, the NYC associates, not really doing anything, right? Having you do the very peripheral things and not having you do the real work, or having you do nothing at all. Do not allow that happen. Don't waste that year. It is very useful to you. Make sure you are learning, make sure you're asking to do work, make sure you're demanding to be involved, and make sure that outside the things that are happening within the firm, you're also learning by yourself. Attend conferences where you can, virtual, physical, learn and develop yourself. You owe that to yourself. Now let's move to what the legal profession demands of you as you're starting out. The first thing I would say, and take this to heart because it is a true fact, believe in your ability to become. Now, this seems like one of those things you hear on some inspirational or motivational talk show, but the truth is, the legal profession will challenge and question your ability to become. Because what happens is that you will get into it as an NYC associate and they'll tell you you know nothing. And to be honest, to an extent, you don't, right? But when they tell you that, it then begins to make you ask yourself, will I ever get to that point where I'm as good as this person who spent 7, 8, 9, 10 years in the profession? Will I ever get to that point where I really understand these terms? For those who will be in transactional work, you'd hear a lot of terms that you would not understand. You're like, how do they know so much? Will I ever get there? You need to overcome that I will never and realize that you can become. All it takes is the experience, the work, and putting in all of the things that you'll be hearing during these sessions. So understand the fact that you will have this questioned. You would have your intelligence questioned, whether you finish the first class or whatever. You would come into rooms and into meetings and you'll be doing things and you'll be like, did I even finish from school? It is going to happen because there is a learning curve that you have to get through. So that's the first thing. The second thing is diligence and dedication. The legal profession demands from you diligence and dedication, and you have to give it. So some of you have heard about the long hours people have to keep, in some firms, the grueling work, the attention to detail. It's very important because the work that we do as lawyers is work that the devil is in the details. So a question mark, a full stop, a comma, an apostrophe means a lot to a sentence than it would mean to the ordinary layman, because it can change the meaning. It can do a lot. It can be the basis of a lawsuit. So you need to start training yourself to focus, training yourself to pay attention, training yourself to be diligent and dedicated. It's one of those things that you have to give to the profession. The third thing is curiosity. That is defined as a desire to know and understand. So not just, not the amebo type of curiosity, I want to hear the gist that is going around, but the curiosity that says, I want to know this thing, I want to know what it is, and I want to understand the nitty-gritty. So curiosity would always keep you ahead in the legal profession because there's a lot you will come across. You come across a lot of laws, you come across a lot of concepts. And the question that you're asking while reading, say, a judgment is to say, why was this decided this way? And why was this decided this other way? If this was decided this way and the reliance was on this, then why was this not decided this way as well? So in asking those questions, you're developing what is called the analytical skill. Now, that skill is a critical skill in the legal profession. And curiosity will take you from point A to point B, trying to cross-reference and trying to determine why a certain thing is what it is. It's the same thing with transactional work. Say you're reading a 300, 500-page LMA loan agreement, and you're trying to understand why is this concept this way. Then you're having 3 or 4 defined terms in one definition. So from there, you go to another defined term. In that defined term, you have another defined term. So in understanding one concept, you've gone through 8 or 9 defined terms. And then at the end, you come down to, okay, so this is why it is what it is, and this is why it is that way in this clause. And then you ask yourself, what other clauses will be affected by me changing a provision of this clause? It could be a nightmare, but that curiosity has to constantly be in you as a person who's looking to succeed in the legal profession. The fourth thing is willingness and commitment to learn, very similar to curiosity, to be honest. And this here means that you are constantly willing to learn. You are not closing your mind up to anything because you realize that, yes, you've gone through school, you've learned all of this, but there's a lot else for you to learn. And so willing to learn it, humbling yourself to learn it, and committing to learn it. So learning from others, self-development, which is what I talked about earlier, just trying by yourself to learn all these things depending on where you are, watching, what is this person doing, how are they doing it, and doing it. So you want to find a nice mix, a nice, mixture of learning by watching the person doing it, learning by doing what they're doing, and learning by personally developing yourself. Now that's number 4. Number 5 is flexibility or fluidity. Your interests may never always stay the same, even for those who know what you're interested in now. In 2 years, you may find that, I don't think I'm very interested in IP again. Maybe I'm interested more in entertainment as, you know, a smaller subset, or maybe entertainment IP rather than the larger IP, or rather than trademarks and patents, or I'm interested in arbitration rather than litigation, or I'm interested in this really, really fine aspect of mediation rather than the broader aspect of, you know, sitting in arbitration rooms and doing arbitration. So you would find that as you go along, you may become interested in things that are different from what you started out with. It may all be connected. It may be, you know, completely different, but you need to give yourself that flexibility and fluidity to be able to transition, to be able to learn new things, and to be able to adapt to whatever circumstance. Leadership is the next thing, leadership and taking initiative. Now, leadership is something that you could have built up as a skill before now. If you have, well done, because that skill is a very key skill. When they say leadership, they're not asking you to come into the firm and, you know, become the managing partner in your year one or the second year. They are saying you need to be able to take initiative. You need to be able, because leadership is first leading yourself. So without somebody asking you do this, you're able to set your own goals, your own targets, have your own timelines, and get things going. You're able to, you know, put yourself into action, decide, okay, this is happening, that is happening, meaning that, you know, we're supposed to file this in 5 days and nobody has said anything. I'm going to reach out to say, you know, do you want me to start working on a draft? Or, you know, making things happen without being told to make them happen. That is something you have to start building on. Next thing is thinking out of the box. Now, law is such a profession that is very precedent driven. But at the same time, for you to become the lawyer that stands out, you need to think outside the box that is already created for you. The danger is that over time, you become the precedent guy because they tell you, oh yeah, you know, there's this precedent, there's that precedent, there's this, you know, it was already decided here, it's already, and you just keep following the precedent and you never ask yourself, stop and think, you know, how can we do this differently? Or why is it this way? Or why was this here? You know, and it's not meant to be here based on what I know. So again, this goes back to believing in your ability to become. You do know something, despite the fact that you don't know a lot or you don't know a lot about practice. You need to give yourself some credit for the fact that you have gone through school and there are things that you just look at and do not make any sense, and you need to start thinking outside the box for them. Sometimes you are the one who finds that thing because you're the one who's closest to the document, closest to the details, as opposed to the person who's above you. And two final things before I wrap up. Getting mentors, very important. I did hear Mr. Ophili mention about mentors. You need to invest in getting mentors because they would help guide you through your journey and make sure that it's smoother than, you know, it would probably be without. And then the final thing is network. Now, you don't want to be that person who's just, I want to put my head to the book and do everything right. The best lawyers made it to the top by networking. They have a tremendous network of friends, lawyer friends and non-lawyer friends. That's how people get clients. That's how people get to be, you know, oh, I have that friend. And then all of a sudden, he's not the best lawyer in town, but somebody has just put him on a very juicy brief, right? So you need to know how to network. Use your LinkedIn, use in-person networking, go for events, get involved. All right, so that's where I'll stop, and then I'll leave the you know, the room open for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. I'll just go through the Q&A box and the chat box to see if we have questions for you. I'm definitely sure we have. Okay, I don't see any questions yet, but I want to believe that we have some questions. So if you have any question, you can just drop it in the chat box or the Q&A box, or I will just go through it. For that note, I would just like to commend Mr. Caleb. If I was just passing and hearing you speak, I would just assume that, oh, maybe you're a PhD holder, a lecturer somewhere in one top university. I mean, you drove all the points home perfectly. And for someone like me, just rounding up my youth service, you know, here at the law firm, and all what you said is actually very true, and without missing words, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. So while we wait for questions to come into the Q&A box or the chat box, I would like to just ask, right? Is it, if, for instance, you said it's not, it's okay to not know, no, you said it's okay to start out with, having a particular niche of law you want to invest in or you want to have. Is it okay to know, okay, you can say, I don't know, I know what I don't want to be, but I don't know what I want to be. So just about that, many people are just confused. They don't know exactly what they want to be, but they know what they don't want to be.
And that is fine, right? It's a very good start to know, well, I know that I don't ever want to do litigation, or I know that I don't ever want to do transactional work, but you're not very sure of the niche. Let's say you say, well, I don't want to do litigation, or I don't want to do capital markets, but I know that, I'm open to every other thing. That's also fine, because what it does is that it gives you a start through an elimination method, right? So what you do during your service year is to just open your mind to whatever is thrown at you. Because again, the thing with the service year is that in some places, like I said, bigger firms get to rotate you. In some other places, you don't get to pick. It's just, wherever they post you. And you'll find that most of those firms are doing litigation and say a bit of corporate work. So what you can do is to try to get yourself, if you're somebody who likes corporate, for instance, and you're brought to the firm for your service year and just put on the litigation team, what you can try to do is to get yourself a bit more corporate work. How? Approach the people. Have a chat with the person in charge of corporate, in charge of assigning work, that, hey, I really like to do some corporate work. I'm very interested in it. But again, you have to show that you're willing to do it and you are really interested in it. So you want to spend some time also reading up on things that having to do with that area of law, especially if say they're working on 2 deals right now in corporate, and those are 2 deals you'd like. So the first thing is even to find out what they're working on. If you see that they are working on this very wonderful deal, maybe advising MTN on some issuance of something, you want to start reading about the issuance online. And then the next thing you want to do is to, most of these firms have their file, there's a file room where the files are, pretty much open to anybody who works there. Pick up the file and read it, right? So that when you're approaching so this is how you put yourself in the place to get things that other people may not get. So you may find that other first NYSC associates are not getting certain things, but you will get them because you invested in it. So by the time you have read about, the deal that's going on, you have chatted with, maybe if there are 2 or 3 associates working on it, you have gone to chat with them about it. You have read online about the deal. You have gone to pick up the file and read it. By the time you're going to meet them to say, well, you'd like to be staffed or anything, or if there are meetings you'd like to join, that, you're taking some time to read the file and that this is what is going on, that's what is going on, they'll be impressed. And then the next time they have something that, they may have you handle, they'll say, you know what, we don't need this thing now, but can you start putting together a draft of this? Now, that is how you get your foot in the door. Right. So it's never going to just come to you, especially in these type of firms that do not rotate you. Now, if it's a firm that doesn't have a corporate practice at all, learn the litigation you can, be diligent in it. And while learning that litigation, be investing your extra time in reading up things on corporate law, because that's the area you're interested in. Do you understand? As you go along, you begin to discover more niches of things that you're interested in. But at first, it might just be, well, I broadly do not have interest in this, but I think I can try to explore this one. So feel free to explore.
Okay. Thank you very, very, very much. The absence of any question, I would just like to ask one more question before we call it a day. There are some people who, for instance, okay, let me use myself as an example. We are lawyers by training and we're lawyers by profession, but maybe you have, a special interest for finance or tax or something, and that you don't want to do the regulatory and compliance part, you don't want to do the legal part of finance or legal part of investment or whatever. You want to do the substantive part, like you want to do accounting to become a CFA charter holder and all of that. Is it right? Is it a decision? Is it a good decision to take as a lawyer? Having studied 7 years in school, you now have to take the CFA course and all of that, then switch.
Look, people have switched after studying in school for 6, 7 years and working for 5. So that's 12. People have, after that, decided that they want to switch and completely do something different, right? some of you might know Mr. David Sinotoro, who was a partner at Alex, who's currently now a venture capitalist. That's really all he's doing right now. That's a switch, right? And that was a switch at what point of his career, at what people will call the peak of his career. So the flexibility and fluidity about life generally and about this just practice is that you can switch at any point that you strongly feel, well, I believe that, I want to either be an accountant or be an investment banker or whatever, take up it. I mean, it's going to be another learning curve for you, but as long as you're committed to the learning curve, it's a great way to pivot. And the good thing about it is that the experience you have from being a lawyer will never be useless. You'll be heads and shoulders above the other people who are working with you, because you'll not just have the investment banker knowledge or the accountant knowledge, from what you've decided to study and the work you're doing, but you'd also have the background of somebody who's studied and practiced law. And so when you look at things, you look at them and you're like, yes, I see the accounting bit, but I also see a problem that is likely going to arise here from legal. Do you understand? And so you are of more value to your employer than the person who just has the knowledge of the figures. I see a question and I hope I answered that question. I see a question in the chat and I just want to answer it. Okay, I do see two now. You guys do take time to ask your questions. Okay, it says, on curiosity, I find myself reading up random things in different areas, then I get confused. If I complete my research in this area, a new issue pops up in another area and I find myself living in this area. I totally understand what you're saying. Now, one way to do this is to isolate topics of interest or issues of interest, right? The truth is, there's so much to learn. And if you try to learn everything at once, you will probably not learn it. So when you realize that you want to, study on a particular area, you want to start highlighting what the things are. Let's say you're reading an article on that area and you're seeing things you don't understand. You want to highlight them. And then one by one, begin to pick. So if you highlighted 7 things, start with the first one and understand what that is. So it's what is called eating an elephant one bite at a time, because the learning phase for many learning curves is just this really large thing. And that's why a lot of people get very scared at learning new things, because it's like, how do I learn all of these things? But by the time you start breaking it up into small sizes of, okay, I'm going to learn this entire thing here, but I'm going to start with this bit. Pretty much like you eat any meal, right, on your plate. You don't look at it and say, wow, this is such a mountain of food, and then, throw the whole thing into your mouth at a time. You start eating from the place that is closest to you, 1 spoon at a time. And in 30 minutes or so, you'll be done, right? So it's the same thing. You need to pick it bit by bit, understand, and then keep going, because that's another thing. That's a challenge you would see in reading legal documents, especially the large ones. I don't know, how many people here have picked up an LMA facility agreement before, or one of those really large documents that's running into 400 pages or more. Now, when you look at it, you're like, what exactly is this thing saying? And you say, you know what, let me understand this clause. And in one clause, you're seeing 5 defined terms. Now, with trying to understand each defined term is taking you to another one and to another one and to another one, but just taking your time to say, you know what, I would understand this bit, and then that knowledge, use it to understand this bit. It will take you time, but it's a less confusing process, than doing it any other way. I hope that helped. I don't know if I have time to answer the final question I see here. Do I?
It's time up, but you can just quickly answer it.
Okay, he says, you mentioned the importance of networking, but you don't get much feedback. Look, networking is a full job on its own, right? And the truth is, people don't owe you anything. They don't owe you a response. They don't owe you. They can decide not to, right? Which is why you need to just develop with the patience and the right systems for getting to speak to them, right? Again, if these people are people that you can access through events, try to look for events that they are speaking at. Trust me, an in-person meeting is the best way to sustain an offline meeting, right? It could be 2 minutes, but by meeting that person in person, you go to one of their speaking engagements and then you walk up to them and say, oh, hi, I'm this, and I tried to reach out to you on this, and oh, hi, and then you guys connect, and then you reconnect on LinkedIn. It's a whole different ballgame. Another thing is people are busy. right? So follow up as much as you can, follow up with respect, follow up, understanding the demands of, their time and everything. And as much as possible, when you get responses, appreciate it. You could also use people that you know to get across to people that you don't know. But there are a lot of questions around LinkedIn, and we can't answer all of them here, but I hope that helps.
Thank you very, very, very much, Mr. Caleb. Your last answer actually was wonderful, because it's not just for the person who asked the question, but for everybody here, including myself, because you see yourself reaching out to people trying to network and they're not exactly answering. But as you see, physical meetings actually substantiate or complement your online meeting, then you go back to reconnect on LinkedIn. So thank you very, very, very much on that. So if we have further questions, I'm sure you'll be inclined and happy to have them in your email, or whichever way we can send the questions across.
Yeah, happy to answer if you send them across.
Thank you very much. On that note, I think we'll be drawing the curtain here. It's 5 minutes behind our close time. I would have been calling Mr. Tobena Erojikwe, who is the chairman of the Cochin Legal, the NBA ICLE that's organizing this program or this symposium. But he's away now, and earlier when the meeting started, he said we should extend his best regards to everyone who stays to the end of the event. On that note, we're extending his best regards, as well as best regards of everybody who is a panelist here tonight. And we're as well telling you to share, repost, and invite your friends for the next week's session. We're having a session on Saturday next week and on Sunday. So we hope to see you all there. If I had known all these things that has just been said tonight, maybe my youth service year would have been better off, especially when Mr. Caleb said that your service year is not a flex year. Maybe if I had known, I would have taken it differently, but thank you very much for that and many other things you said. So on that note, we're saying good night to everybody. Good night, sir.
Thank you. Bye.